Everything you were taught about ancient history has a gap in it. Not a small one. A continent-sized one. For centuries, the story of human civilization has been told as if Africa was a footnote, a backdrop to the main events unfolding elsewhere. But what if that framing was never about the evidence? What if it was about who got to write the story? Because here is what the documented historical record actually shows. Africa was home to the world's first university-level institution. A black king from deep in Nubia once ruled all of Egypt, and commanded pharaohs to kneel before him. A West African emperor walked into Cairo and accidentally crashed the global gold market. An Edo kingdom in what is now Nigeria was producing bronze artwork of such technical precision that European scholars refused to believe Africans had made it. And a West African kingdom maintained a professional, organized, all-female army, centuries before the modern world had a word for that concept. These are not legends. They are not myths. They are documented in Arabic chronicles, European colonial records, archaeological excavations, and museum collections that sit, right now, in London, Berlin, and Paris. So the question is not whether this history happened. The question is, why didn't anyone tell you? Stay with this. Because by the time this is over, you will not look at the ancient world the same way again. Picture the year 1324. In Europe, the Black Death is still 2 decades away. Oxford University is barely 200 years old. The printing press has not been invented. Books are rare, precious, hand-copied objects, and most people who own them live in monasteries. Now cross the Sahara Desert. Follow ancient trade routes carved by camel caravans across 1,000 miles of sand. Travel south and west until you arrive at a city on the southern edge of the Sahara, at the bend of the Niger River. Timbuktu. And what you find there will completely reframe everything you thought you knew about the medieval world. Because Timbuktu in the 14th and 15th centuries was not a remote outpost. It was not a village in the desert. It was one of the most sophisticated intellectual cities on earth. The Sankor Mosque, established around 1100 CE, had evolved over the following centuries into what historians now recognize as one of the earliest university-level institutions in the world. By the 15th century, scholars estimate that Timbuktu's institutions were hosting between 25,000 and 30,000 students at any given time. In a city with a total population of roughly 100,000. Think about that ratio for a moment. 1 in every 4 people in the city was a student. And what were they studying? Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, philosophy, history, theology. While medieval Europe was still debating the movement of the planets based on ancient Greek texts, scholars in Timbuktu were writing original works, not copying old ideas. Generating new knowledge. But here is the part that most people have never heard. The manuscripts they produced, the physical documents, survived. The Ahmed Baba Institute in Timbuktu has catalogued between 100,000 and 700,000 surviving documents. And the full count is still ongoing. Many of these were hidden in family collections for generations. Buried under sand. Tucked inside walls. Preserved in the dry Saharan climate by people who understood exactly what they were protecting. There are manuscripts on surgery and pharmacology, on astronomical observations, on constitutional governance, rules for just and unjust war, principles of taxation, standards of evidence in legal proceedings. There is even a 13th century manuscript that outlines, in clear legal terms, the rights of women in commerce and property. This was not a society without sophistication. This was a society that had built that sophistication and written it down, in ink, across centuries. Now meet the man who became the symbol of everything they tried to erase. His name was Ahmed Baba al-Timbukti. Born in 1556, he became the most prolific scholar of the Timbuktu tradition, authoring more than 40 works on Islamic law, biography, and theology. His personal library contained 1,600 books. And historians note that this was, reportedly, his smallest collection. He had given or lent away thousands more. Then, on March 13, 1591, everything changed. A Moroccan army, equipped with firearms and cannons, weapons the Songhai Empire had not yet acquired in large numbers, crossed the Sahara and met the Songhai forces at the Battle of Tondibi. The Songhai had a larger army. But gunpowder changed the mathematics of warfare. The Songhai were defeated. Timbuktu fell. 2 years later, in 1593, Moroccan Sultan Ahmed al-Mansa ordered the deportation of Timbuktu scholars to Marrakesh. Ahmed Baba was among them. He was forced to leave his home, his libraries, his city. In Marrakesh, placed under house arrest, he continued to write. He continued to teach. Moroccan students came to learn from him even in captivity. He did not stop. But something else was happening back in Timbuktu, something the invaders did not anticipate. Families began hiding the manuscripts. They buried them, sealed them in clay jars, carried them south on foot, embedded them in walls, passed them down through generations with one instruction: never let them fall into the wrong hands. The knowledge went underground. And it survived. Now jump forward 400 years. To 2012 and 2013. A new threat arrived in Timbuktu, this time from armed groups who occupied the city and began targeting cultural heritage. Libraries were threatened. Ancient documents were burned. But once again, the people moved faster than those who would erase them. Working in secrecy, teams of archivists and community members covertly transported approximately 350,000 manuscripts from Timbuktu to Bamako, Mali's capital. Loading them into vehicles. Hiding them under ordinary goods. Moving under cover of night. The knowledge survived again. The same city. The same mission. 4 centuries apart. Ahmed Baba died in 1627, after eventually being allowed to return to Timbuktu. The institute that now bears his name stands in the city today, still cataloging, still preserving, still counting manuscripts the world once claimed did not exist. The university the world forgot never stopped existing. It just had to fight, twice, to survive. Now, here is something that does not appear in most history textbooks. Egypt, the Egypt of pyramids, of pharaohs, of the Valley of the Kings, was once conquered and ruled by its southern neighbors. And those neighbors were black African kings from what is now Sudan. Not for a year. Not for a decade. For nearly a century. To understand how this happened, you have to understand the state of Egypt around 1000 BCE. The Great New Kingdom, the era of Ramesses the Great, of Tutankhamun, of the Battle of Kadesh, had ended. After the death of Ramesses XI around 1077 BCE, Egypt fractured. Instead of one unified kingdom under one pharaoh, the country splintered into competing regions, each controlled by local rulers, priests, and military commanders. Egypt was not invaded. It broke apart from the inside. Meanwhile, to the south, in the region the ancient Egyptians called Kush, centered around modern-day Sudan, a powerful kingdom had been quietly growing. The kingdom of Kush had traded with Egypt for centuries, built its own pyramids, worshipped its own version of Egyptian gods, particularly Amun. And now, watching Egypt fragment and weaken, its king saw something. An opening. His name was Pia, also recorded as Pianki. He ruled from his capital at Napata, near what is now Karima in northern Sudan. Around 744 BCE, he launched a military campaign northward. But here is the part that makes this story different from ordinary conquest. Pia did not frame his campaign as an invasion. His inscriptions describe it in religious terms. Egypt's fragmented rulers were failing in their proper worship of Amun. Pia was not just a conqueror. He was, in his own telling, a restorer. His forces moved north along the Nile. City after city fell. And then came Memphis, one of Egypt's most important centers of commerce and religion. Memphis fell too. What happened next was recorded in stone. Pia's victory stele, recovered at Jebel Barkal and now housed in the Cairo Museum, documents the submission of 4 Egyptian kings and numerous princes. It describes men who carried the title of pharaoh lowering themselves before a Kushite king from the south. It is one of the longest historical inscriptions from ancient Egypt. And it does not read like the record of an outsider. It reads like the record of a ruler reclaiming what his God had already given him. Pia founded what Egyptologists call the 25th dynasty. His successors ruled Egypt for decades. At its height, the 25th dynasty controlled a unified Nile valley stretching from the Mediterranean coast all the way to Napata in the south, the largest Egyptian-controlled territory since Thutmose III, roughly 700 years earlier. One of Pia's successors, Taharqa, is mentioned in the Bible. In the Book of Kings. In the Book of Isaiah. He is depicted on temple walls at Karnak. A figure of global significance in the ancient world, a black African king of Egypt, acknowledged by name in texts across multiple civilizations. The dynasty's end came not from weakness within, but from force without. The Assyrian Empire invaded Egypt in 671 BCE and again more decisively in 664 BCE. The Kushite rulers retreated south. But their story did not end there. The kingdom of Kush continued independently for nearly another 1,000 years, until approximately 350 CE. Building its own pyramids. Developing the Meroitic script, a writing system that still has not been fully decoded. Maintaining trade networks reaching as far as India and Rome. Here is a fact worth sitting with. There are more pyramids in Sudan today than in Egypt. More than 200, compared to Egypt's roughly 130. They are steeper, narrower, and architecturally distinct. They are also almost never featured in documentaries about the ancient world. The king who made Egyptian pharaohs had it carved in stone so it could never be denied. That stone still exists. The history was always there. January 1897. A British colonial expedition enters the city of Benin, in what is now southern Nigeria. British forces occupied Benin City, removed the Oba from his throne, and systematically looted the royal palace. What they found inside stopped them cold. Thousands of bronze and brass plaques. Ivory carvings. Intricate sculptures of rulers, warriors, animals, and court scenes. Works of art that were technically sophisticated, aesthetically refined, and clearly the product of a structured tradition spanning centuries. The British soldiers and officers who wrote accounts of the looting said so themselves. In their own letters and reports. They had not expected to find art of this quality in West Africa. They brought approximately 3,000 to 5,000 objects back to Britain, distributed across Europe and North America, eventually ending up in over 160 museums worldwide. The British Museum currently holds around 900 pieces. The Ethnologisches Museum in Berlin holds approximately 530. And then something unexpected happened. The moment these works appeared in European institutions, they forced a conversation that no one in those institutions was prepared to have. Because the Benin Bronzes were not primitive. They were not simple craft objects. They demonstrated mastery of the lost wax casting technique, a process in which a wax model is encased in clay, heated until the wax melts away, and replaced with molten metal, producing works of extraordinary detail and precision. They showed perspective, proportion, narrative composition, a complete artistic tradition with its own grammar and logic. And the response from some European scholars at the time was illuminating. Some argued the work must have been produced by outside influence, by Portuguese traders, by ancient Egyptians, by anyone other than the Edo people who actually lived there. The idea that an African civilization had independently developed this level of artistic sophistication did not fit what those scholars believed was possible. But the evidence told a different story. Archaeological research traced the Benin bronze casting tradition back to at least the 13th century CE, with roots potentially earlier. The works depicted Benin court life across many generations. Royal ceremonies, military campaigns, diplomatic encounters. They were not decoration. They were a historical archive cast in metal. Under Oba Uwer the Great, who ruled from approximately 1440 to 1473, this tradition was formally institutionalized. He established the Igun Erenwan, the hereditary guild of brass casters, making bronze production a protected, organized, state-supported craft. Skills passed from parent to child. Generation to generation. It was not informal. It was a structured system of professional artistic production that had been operating for centuries before a British expedition ever set foot in Benin City. And the bronzes are still not home. Nigeria gained independence in 1960 and made its first formal request for their return that same year. The conversation has continued for more than 6 decades. Germany, in 2022, began transferring its collection, more than 500 objects, back to Nigeria. Other institutions have announced timelines and commitments. The British Museum has not committed to full repatriation. Under the British Museum Act of 1963, it is legally prohibited from permanently removing objects from its collection, a law written long before colonial repatriation was a serious international conversation. The legal argument exists. The moral argument is still being made. What is not in dispute is what the bronzes themselves prove, that the Kingdom of Benin was a sophisticated, organized, creatively advanced civilization that documented its own existence in a medium designed to outlast everything else. They cast it in metal so that no one could claim it never happened. The year is 1324. In Cairo, merchants are going about their business. The gold market is stable, predictable, well understood by those who work it. Then a man arrives from West Africa, and the gold market in Cairo does not recover for more than a decade. His name was Mansa Musa. Mansa is a title, it means emperor, or king of kings. He was the 10th Mansa of the Mali Empire, and he came to power around 1312. Under his reign, the Mali Empire stretched from the Atlantic coast inland across the savannah to the edge of the Sahara, controlling the gold fields of Bambuk and Bure, and the salt mines of Tagaza. At its peak, the Mali Empire controlled what historian Michael Gomez estimated was approximately half of the entire world's gold supply. Half. And in 1324, Mansa Musa decided to make his pilgrimage to Mecca. He did not travel quietly. Arab chronicler Al-Umari, writing approximately 12 years after the event, described the entourage. 60,000 people. 500 heralds, each carrying a golden staff. 80 camels loaded with gold dust. A procession that stretched across the landscape and announced, with every step, exactly who was coming and where he was from. When he arrived in Cairo, Mansa Musa distributed gold freely, paid for goods and services at prices far above market value, gave gifts to officials, scholars, and ordinary people. He stayed for 3 months. One of the Agojie's most documented leaders is known as Sedong Hongbe. In 1851, she led a force of approximately 6,000 Agojie warriors in a campaign against the Egba fortress at Abeokuta, in what is now southwestern Nigeria. The campaign did not succeed, the Egba held their fortified walls. But the scale of what she led, and the organizational capacity required to put that force in the field, was noted in detail by European observers present at the time. Stanley Alpern, whose 1998 book Amazons of Black Sparta is the definitive academic study of the Agojie, drew on French military records, traveler accounts, and oral histories over years of research. His conclusion was direct. The Agojie were not symbolic. They were not ceremonial. They were a functioning, disciplined, professional army, one that had been operating for generations before European forces ever encountered them. The Agojie fought in 2 wars against French colonial forces. The first Franco-Dahomean War in 1890. The second, from 1892 to 1894. French Foreign Legion records and the accounts of Colonel Alfred Amedee Dodds, who commanded the French forces, document what they faced. The Agojie fought until they could not. Dahomey fell in 1894. French colonial authorities formally disbanded the Agojie Corps. The last known surviving member reportedly died around 1979. In 2022, a film called The Woman King brought this story to a global audience, introducing millions of people to a history they had never encountered in any classroom. The film took creative liberties, as dramatizations do, and historians have noted specific points where it diverged from the documented record. But it opened a door. And the history behind that door is real. A professional female army. Organized. Documented. Formally recorded, not in legend, not in oral tradition alone, but in the written accounts of the very colonial forces that eventually ended them. The Agojie were real. And they were extraordinary. 5 stories. 5 different centuries. 5 different parts of a single continent. A university that survived 2 attempts at erasure and still holds manuscripts the world has not finished counting. A king who marched out of Nubia and made Egyptian pharaohs bow, leaving a carved stone record that sits in a museum in Cairo right now. A civilization that produced bronze art so technically advanced that European scholars initially refused to credit Africans with making it, and those works are still being fought over in courts and diplomatic channels today. An emperor whose generosity disrupted the global gold market for more than a decade, and whose image appeared on European maps half a century after his death. And a corps of women who trained, fought, and held their ground, documented in the records of the enemies who eventually defeated them. None of these stories were suppressed because the evidence was missing. The evidence was always there. In Arabic chronicles. In European expedition reports. In carved stone. In cast metal. In manuscripts carried by hand across the Sahara by families who understood what they were preserving. Historian Basil Davidson spent much of his career documenting exactly this pattern. He argued that the idea of a pre-colonial Africa without history was not a conclusion the evidence led to. It was a premise, one that shaped which evidence got looked for, which was preserved, and which was taught to generations of students around the world. The question for anyone still watching is not whether these things happened. They happened. The question is what it means that most of us are only hearing about them now, and what we decide to do with that understanding. Because history is not only what occurred in the past. History is what a society chooses to remember. And remembering, it turns out, is a choice we still get to make. If this video added something to your understanding of history, please like it helps more people find this content. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what we publish next. Share this with someone who deserves to know this history and drop a comment below. Your thoughts and questions directly shape the stories we tell next.